Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hi, everyone. The news is crazy. Craziest football week ever.
Where do we start?
I think I should just... obviously we do talk about Belichick.
Yeah.
I've been wrong. I'll admit that. I was my gut was he'll stay.
Yep.
But clearly not the case. I will say up front, like a lot of other reporters have said, and I know I'm not wrong about this one, he is not coming here.
Yep.
Not as the coach.
Yeah.
If he decided he didn't want to coach and wanted to be in some kind of advisory role, I would buy into, considering we're surrounding ourselves with best and brightest,
right,
that would make sense to me. Nick Saban, too, for that matter. But he's not going to be the head coach here. We're going to hire Washington. Washington is going to hire.
You're part of it. You're allowed to.
We're going to hire a president. Like, as I've said, we're going to hire a president of football operations or whatever the title's going to be within probably the next few days.
Yep.
I'd kind of earmarked Monday as probably the latest. Adam Peters, as I've talked about, I think is the person that they have pointed at as the person that they've wanted for a while, actually. And now it'll come down to, and this is the part I don't know, does he want the job?
Yeah.
And that's the part I can't answer because I don't know him and I don't know his people. So I don't know, but I do know that they've been very interested in him being this. And the reporting is it's down to two people, he and the other name that I heard they've been interested in, Ian Cunningham, who's with the Bears. Is it possible they get both of them? Yes.
Right. Yeah.
It is. There are rules in the NFL that you have to upgrade your position. And so I don't know what the upgraded position would be for Ian Cunningham, other than maybe he just wants to leave. I don't know. And so the reporting of it's down to these final two, to me, more reads like it's possible they're trying to hire both of them.
Right.
Because Adam Peters, assuming takes the job as the president of football or whatever, whatever the title is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that he will want a literal general manager working right underneath him. And so that would make sense to me. In fact, that's what I've expected to happen, that somebody would be the president of football operations / head of the front office, and there would be a day-to-day general manager, the person who fields the calls from the agents and goes through the draft boards with the scouts and all of that type of stuff. And Peters would be part of that too, obviously. But I don't think it's out of the realm that two people are hired here. But that also will then come down to, does Ian Cunningham want the job that isn't the number one?
Right, exactly.
So we don't know the answer to that. And I can't answer either one of those things. But like I've said all week, I do expect this to happen fast. And who knows, maybe within the next day or two, it's a possibility it'll happen. And then that'll check off the big first box. And then the coaching part's going to take some time because the people that I know they're sincerely interested in are playing in the playoffs this weekend.
Yep.
And it is going to depend, when are these people available to, one, interview, and two, accept the job. And that will largely depend on how far some of these guys go. I know they want to speak to Ben Johnson before they hire anybody. So if the Lions are upset this weekend, well, then he's available. And if they're not, then I don't know when he's going to interview and talk to them. Yeah. It's gonna take a little bit of time, but we've known that kind of going through the process here. So that's where we are on that. And would it shock me that by the end of the show they name somebody this? No.
Right.
I don't know that it'll happen today, but I do think it'll happen, in short order, as I've kind of told you from Monday. From the press conference on, I was told by people who know this part of it's going to happen really fast, unless the people they've been targeting somehow don't want the job, which is the part I can't predict.
What's the phrase you use? Fast and thorough, I think is what he said on Monday.
Rapid.
rapid and thorough.
Yeah, and some organizations lie about their intentions. So far, these owners haven't lied about a thing.
Yeah, right, exactly.
They said Ron Rivera was going to get the full year. I told you all, and until they become liars, I told you that's what's going to happen, whether you like it or not, that is what's going to happen, and that is what happened. They gave him the year, and it clearly, by early December, it was pretty clear what was going to happen, but they just decided that it wasn't really in their best interest to do something that painted them in a bad light. Yeah. They wanted to keep their promise, let the ship just run its course. There was no benefit to firing Ron Rivera earlier than that, unless they sincerely thought Eric Bieniemy could be his successor. And then I think it would have benefited them to give that a run for a few weeks just to see how it goes. But clearly they haven't been thinking that either. Yeah. So will Eric get an interview? Maybe. I don't know that he won't. But I do not expect him to be the next head coach of the team.
Yeah,
I mean, and I mean that respectfully. I just don't expect him to be the choice. I think they're going to go in a different direction. But the coach one is going to take a little while because I know the people they want to talk, they want it to be a thorough search. And the vast majority of the people that they want to talk to are unavailable to be spoken to until their teams are eliminated. And in the case of if they really do want to wait out the Ravens people, they're going to have to wait at least 2 weeks and probably longer. I mean, like, the reality is they have a home game as a 1 seed, rested, and the way they've played, if they're going to continue playing that way, you're not talking to anybody from them until the week of the Super Bowl, frankly.
Right.
So that's a month from now. So you got a little ways to go. I do think Ben Johnson, to me, is the number one clear candidate. But again, the Lions have to be eliminated, and I don't know when that is going to happen. So we'll see.
The other part of this, too, is, I wonder how much more desirable some of these guys are, the guys that are in the playoffs that everyone kind of holds. Like, who's going to be the first one to make an actual hire not using one of those guys? Like, let's say...
I think if you're a team that wants Jim Harbaugh, it's going to happen pretty fast.
Right.
If you're a team that wants Belichick, I actually think it's going to happen really fast. If you're a team, that wants any of these other coordinators, you're stuck in that holding pattern. But for the Commanders, because they needed both and they want to get best and brightest, whoever they think best and brightest is to run the organization, they want to do that very fast. Yeah. And I think they're doing it, obviously, in a very expedient manner. And look, I mean, the reality is, and I've known this for a while, and Rivera finally revealed it, but I've known this for a while. There was never an intention to keep it as a one-voice thing. It was always going to be split. Rivera, even if he was auditioning to remain the head coach, he lost, his ability to sell himself that way. He was never going to retain control of the front office. They were always going to hire somebody, and that's why it was always unlikely he was going to be the head coach. However, if they had an 11-6 season, I think he then would have had a case to say, I'll give up control. Obviously, I'm going to have to give up control of the front office, but you see what I'm doing here. Like, maybe I should still be the voice in the room with the guys. And he lost control of that. But it was never likely to be that outcome because they're going to hire a president of the football, and they're, of course, going to want to pick their guy anyway.
That's right.
So it was always unlikely, but Rivera was given the opportunity to make the case that he should at least be considered to continue. He was under contract for another year, and they gave him that opportunity, and they went 4-13.
Right.
And the
with
quarter
of problems.
with the problems that we don't need to go through because we've turned the page, and it's clear, like it was clear by Thanksgiving that there was just no chance that this was going to turn around and be that. And because all along they knew they were going to split the duties, that part of the search started a long time ago.
Right. Exactly.
It started before the trade deadline. Mm-hmm. Like, they brought in an analytics person who's going to be part of this front office.
Who directed them to do that, yeah.
Who directed them to do some of these things, and like at the behest of the owners who are asking for new direction, new vision, and as I think Rivera used the word paradigm shift. So now, like, we're at the right stage of this. There's no rush to get the coach yet because they can't interview the people they want to interview.
Yeah.
But they had to do this part fast because there are other places that are looking at general managers, president of football operations, whatever you call them, and they wanted to go secure that person. Adam Peters, to me, from San Francisco, makes a lot of sense because of the success that they had. And the second they brought Bob Myers in, and I went, he knows him. Right. It's so on the nose.
Yeah,
like, he's there in the room to continue to convince this person this is the right place for you to be.
Right.
In the same way Magic Johnson's in the room, in the same way that Magic Johnson's talking to Wes Moore and community leaders in Prince George's County. Like, it's great to have Magic Johnson to be part of the organization, not just because he's Magic Johnson, but because he already has relationships with these people that you're trying to get deals done with. It's just smart business. This Josh Harris guy is surrounding himself with people to help him get the deals done that he wants to get done. That's a really good positive sign of how things are moving forward here. He hasn't walked in and pulled Snyder and said, I've got all the answers. I already know what I'm doing. I'm rich. I'm from here. I know what the Redskins are. I'll do it.
Right.
He's not doing that. Yeah. Like, he's actually surrounding himself with a lot of people to help him, guide him towards a decision, and also maybe help push across the finish line the candidates he really wants.
Well, it's also if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it with a full court press. I'm not going to just do this solo either.
It's the right way to do it.
Yeah, right. If you have all these guys, even though we've all heard the Washington job is now really desirable, right? We've heard that for the past month, essentially.
Because of the ownership, because what's there, because of the cap room, because of the number 2 pick.
Because of the draft,
Because also, and don't underestimate, well, this is a long-time, 90-plus-year-old franchise, so it's a legacy franchise. So you've got a fan base that can be reactivated, you hope. You know, we're hoping, as time goes by, they'll be reactivated. But they've never gone away. The ratings are always there. It's just the ticket sales have been down because people are very disappointed, and I don't think people like the stadium, and they understand that too.
Right.
These are problems they're going to have to deal with. But in the end, you also have, and this is what's good for people coming in here, the bar's actually low on this franchise. So that's actually a good thing. Like, you're not succeeding Bill Belichick here.
That's right. Yep, exactly.
No offense to Rivera, but you're not. You are walking into a situation where everyone's waiting for you to bring back a glory era, and there hasn't been one for a long time.
Yeah.
So you're going to be bronzed if you do it.
Correct.
And that is attractive.
Right.
Plus you're playing here. This market matters. This division matters. You play rivals every year. You're in a massive market. It's a long-time franchise. The colors mean something. Name should mean
the city means something.
City means
Washington
something.
means something.
You're walking into a situation where you're going to get a quarterback. You're going to walk in and you're going to handpick the one you want, with one major exception, probably.
Yeah.
But I also feel like, we're a step away from really having this conversation because we need to talk to who the decision makers are going to be. But are they in love with Caleb Williams? Because if they are, we are in prime pole position to talk to the Bears about it.
Sure. Right. Exactly.
We have to be an attractive landing spot if they do want to trade out, because they can go down to number 2 and take Marvin Harrison and get assets on top, probably Washington's first-round pick next year, and get the best other player, not a quarterback, if that's what they want to do. I don't know if that's what they want to do. I don't know if this is what we want to do, but if it's whoever the coach and GM is says, we really just got to get Caleb here, well, then they're going to push the Bears to make that happen, because the Bears are going to get overwhelmed with offers is what's going to happen.
Right, of course.
They're in a crazy position right now.
Right.
There's somebody's going to offer him 4 first-round picks. You already know it. But it's not going to be to drop the number 2.
Correct.
It's not.
Yeah, right.
Right. That's why I think the case could be made. We can induce you because you're going to get the guy you want.
Sure.
And extra assets if you're willing to give up on this quarterback. And if they don't either buy Caleb as the true answer, which we don't know, or they love Fields, then why wouldn't they do it? And they're going to field all offers, and we'll have to see how overwhelming they actually end up being, because I think they're going to be crazy this year.
Well, yeah, and I mean, here's the other thing, too, is I think you're actually going to get a situation, too, is where they probably just say, Washington says, hey, do you like Caleb Williams or Drake May? And if you like them both, then we don't have to give up any assets, and you're really sitting pretty.
If you're in love with Drake May, they're in an incredible situation.
Right.
Now the fans may agree or disagree with that decision, but you are in this incredible situation where, and this is the rare part of this, and this is why you take the quarterback here. You're rarely in this spot where you can just take him and not have to pay a price to do it. So I don't know or who knows? Like, we don't know. Maybe they like the LSU guy. It's the same thing. Same thing. You could take him. Like, Anthony Richardson became the hot property and ended up going number 4.
Right.
When the draft process started, no one thought that. And then all of a sudden it was like, this guy's too good to be true. Whether that's true or not, that could happen with Jaden Daniels too, because he is the crazy athlete of the group.
Yeah.
This is going to be you look at Caleb Williams and you see the promise of a Hall of Famer if it clicks. You look at Drake May and you go, this guy is the prototypical pocket quarterback who succeeds in the NFL, time-tested. And you got Jaden Daniels, who represents future of the NFL. And if he's Lamar, well, guess what?
Yeah.
You've got ultimate weapon. So you got all 3 of them sitting in front of you. What do you like? Mm-hmm. And that's what I think is going to be extremely attractive to Ben Johnson or whichever coach that they go with, because they're going to say to him, we can, if you're dying to get Caleb, we can try. Can't promise you. We can try. But if you love Drake May, man, are we set. Like, we're just going to pick him.
Yeah.
And there's nothing anybody can do about it. And we're going to take him, and we're going to move on. And then we're going to build our roster from there, and you're off and running. And it's also why I think in the end that and I don't know this for sure, but I think because of the situation they're in, that the likelihood is that they bring in an offensive-minded coach. That would make sense to me. If you're going to go get this quarterback, you bring in the guy on that side of the ball to be there hand-in-hand with him, and not go with the defensive guy where you have to hire the offensive coordinator who is the person working with this person on a day-to-day basis. So I feel like Ben Johnson's the choice. The problem is he's going to have a market. and more jobs keep opening, which helps him. He's the name of the first-timers that everybody wants, so his salary is going to balloon, and then it will come down to where does he want to be and how much money is he willing to cede, or is this group willing to meet whatever his demands are? And I just don't know, because we haven't had experience with them in that realm yet to know, will they just pay whatever it takes no matter what to get their guy? And we don't know that about them. We knew Dan Snyder would. We don't know if these guys will. They may just sell, come to the best place available. We're going to pick your quarterback. We're off and running. And we're patient. We've already proven that. I've proven that in my background with the other teams I own. You will not be forced to get us to a Super Bowl in year one. Like we're not going. We're not Tepper. We're not going to be crazy. We're not going to be crazy here.
Yeah.
We're going to tell you. We're going to give you the time and the runway to do this properly, and we're going to support you. And that's got to mean something.
Yeah.
Especially for a first-time head coach, where he is going to learn on the job. No matter how much he thinks he knows, he's going to find out on the job.
Yeah, and I mean, the other part about this too is it's also, you're not just like, let's say Ben Johnson is the number one, prospect, which I think we agree on. You also then have to fill out his staff too. Like, who's he bringing in as the defensive coordinator?
And I'm sure when he has an interview, he's going to walk in and say, these are the people I want to hire to work under me.
Yes, exactly.
And, there may be an opening for, and this is the other good thing about all these crazy firings that are happening. You may be surprised at who's available to run the defense.
Like I said, you get
Mike
super
Vrabel.
staff. Yeah, super staff.
Yeah. Like if Mike Vrabel somehow doesn't get one of these seats this year, because a lot of them feel earmarked for other people, but there are now some openings where I'd go, I don't know how these other teams don't look at him. In fact, Washington should talk to him too. But if for some reason it's you're not going to get it this year, but it's probably going to happen next year, I would hire him to be the DC in a heartbeat.
Of course.
And go, we got this young guy. We want you to bring in a guy below you that's going to replace you. That's what we want. We want somebody working under you knowing we're probably going to lose you in a year, but we want our DC in waiting sitting there to know that we're ready to go moving forward. So I would talk to him about that's a forethought plan. I think Vrabel probably gets a job, but because he was fired, I don't know how you don't talk to him about being part of super staff for sure. If not, at the bare minimum, he might wow you, and you might want him as the head coach.
That's
so
right.
I would want to talk to him.
Yeah,
he's won too much in recent years, and he's still young and hungry. So I'd want to talk to him.
And I'll just reference this now. Diana Rossini had a great write-up on what went wrong there, and it actually doesn't seem like a lot went wrong. There just happened to be some bitterness and a little bit of a power struggle, and they didn't like that he was talking so highly of the Patriots, which is flat out ridiculous saying that out loud.
He's part of the Ring of Fame.
Right.
That's where this happened. What is he supposed to say?
Right. And so I guess that was on top of some other things. But either way, it was your typical GM versus the coach, and then they weren't agreeing, and eventually it all soured because of that, and then whatever. But either way, what I'm saying is that it didn't seem to be on him or overly his fault. It just seemed to be your typical NFL power struggle, and he lost the last 2 years. But all I'm saying is he's a desirable prospect. I think even more so after that report came out, because it was like he didn't do anything wrong.
No, really and this is the opposite Belichick. Belichick, the GM, ended up being the worst enemy of Belichick, the coach.
Yeah, right.
Once he didn't have Tom Brady, you need to have a really good team. He's a great coach, obviously.
Yeah.
But he did not draft well.
Right.
The team wasn't overwhelmingly good. They missed on Mac Jones, and the team has struggled. And Belichick, the GM, is hurt Belichick, the coach, and now they've just decided, well, it's time to move on. Vrabel's the opposite. Vrabel, the coach, is also very good. Vrabel, the coach, has no say in the personnel, and he's watching his roster go the wrong direction, and he started to get chirpy about it.
Well, because this was a part of what Rossini said, too. She said the Titans want to go full analytics route, and he was perfectly fine with that. But the problem was
you got to bring me players. He's going, you can go analytics route, but you got to bring me players who can play. And I'm watching you get rid of players who can play, and that's not good.
And that was a part of it. They were using analytics to pick the players, and he was going, I don't know what are you quantifying by saying, the analytics are telling you to draft this player. Well, you need to tell me what to do with them if the analytics are telling you to bring them in. So this is where the disconnect started pretty much with them.
Yes,
so.
Vrabel had roles for everybody.
Yeah.
He has specific people, that specific body types with specific all this, and all the analytics are all well and good, but they have to fit into what you're doing. And they also name the impact players they've picked. So their analytics picks haven't really worked out, at least yet. Like, they replaced A.J. Brown with Treylon Burks. Will he be pretty good? Okay, he's not him.
Not him, yeah. That's
Right? Derrick Henry's just older now, so there's not much you can do. Yep. They went and picked Malik Willis. That was a flyer. That didn't work out. Yep. They course-corrected. They picked Levis. I liked him in college, and I think there's a possibility there. But then you look around at the rest of the team, and you go, that's just not a very good team. So it doesn't matter how good a coach he is.
Right.
In the NFL, if you don't have talent, you just can't win. And I don't care how good a coach you are. Belichick's a great example of this. If you don't have the talent, you just can't win. You have to be able to reload. They've gone the wrong way. He got chirpy about it because he wants to win. And he's going, I'm not just going to sit here and watch me given an abjectly average roster and then have you tell me you expect us to win our division every year. That's just not realistic.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Who are they? Jacksonville went and spent a lot of money on all pro level players, and they're better now. And they have a young quarterback. Houston went out and picked this quarterback and clearly actually have some other talent around him. I think that's underrated here. Those receivers are really good. So they're picking well now. And that Will Anderson guy's going to be a stud. So they're picking well now. All of a sudden they're picking well and they're young and they're emerging. And if Stroud continues to get better from where he is, they're going to be really good for a while. And he's watching his team going, we're not active in free agency.
Right.
We took a shot on Hopkins because we didn't have a number one receiver anymore, but that's not a long-term answer. And outside of that, who else have we gone to get? And, oh, by the way, we're drafting players, and they're fine, but they're not good enough.
Well, they're also
they're not impact players.
They're looking at the Texans, where the Texans said, we need a defensive stud and an offensive stud. And they went out and got them both last year, and it's clearly paid off.
They went and grabbed two guys that are Anderson was he was the best defensive player on the board. He looks the part of it already. And they're not complete. They got a long way to go, but they have a very young roster. When we played them last year with Lovey in his last year, and they just had a bad team with bad quarterbacking, and their best offensive player was this average running back. I'm sitting there going, we're going to kill them. Everybody's going to kill them. But by the end of the year, you actually saw, it's not unlike the Bears. They have a lot of really young players. It was actually starting to kind of come around. Mm-hmm. I think that's why people felt bad for Lovey, because they had turned the corner and started to look like the budding building blocks of a good young team. And then he got, roasted out of there. And they brought in this new coach who actually landed in an okay spot. And then as it turned out, they got lucky that Carolina took the wrong quarterback of the two, is really what happened.
Well, that's been a funny part with the Houston fans. They've actually done like a thank you, Lovey, for winning that last game, because it got them. Remember, they were supposed to get the first overall pick, and he won the last game of the year last year, and people were freaking out because it was like, dude, we want our guy, and everyone's now like, thanks for winning the one game at the end of the year because we now have our franchise quarterback.
They could probably, say we would have gone Stroud anyway, which would be the right thing to say, but you don't really know. Once the choice is on the board, you don't know what you're going to do. I was always on top of, I think I would take Stroud over Bryce, but that's just me, and maybe they'll both be really good, and we'll see. It's not looking very good. Right. I feel bad for Bryce. I think he's in a bad situation.
Oh, of course. No.
And that always matters. That in context for this stuff, is he a bad quarterback? I don't know. He doesn't look as good as Stroud, but the situation is so crazy that I don't know how he would succeed. He'd have to be Superman to succeed in a bad situation.
You knew it was bad after week 5 when it was the Panthers are trying to trade for a number 1 wide receiver. And it was like, well, you had one and you traded him in that trade. Yeah. So, it's a bad situation.
All right, let me take a break and we'll get into Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, who on the same day in a 24-hour period, the greatest college football coach of all time and arguably the greatest NFL coach of all time, both are gone. Right. It's amazing. Bram, watch the show. ESPN 630 Sports Capital. This is the first selection of Throwback Thursday this week. We're going back to 1994 today because Bill Belichick and Nick Saban both left their posts. Belichick is intent on coaching next year, and I probably believe he will. Probably at a surprise landing spot, which we'll get into in a moment. Saban, I believe, is actively just retiring from coaching at Alabama, won't be a head coach again, and I'm going to guess is going to get some kind of advisory role somewhere, and I'll get into that in a minute where I think that should be.
But, the joke today was what stops Belichick and Saban from doing a consulting role where they charge $5 million if you want a meeting with the two of them? That's
possibility.
Part-time work.
That's right. And 1994 was chosen because they were on the same staff together for the last and only time back then with the Cleveland Browns when Belichick was the head head coach in Cleveland and Saban was an assistant coach there. So all these people who show me the Shanahan tree with LaFleur, McVay, O'Connell, all the people who are in other places now, and they keep pointing this out that all these people were in Washington. Hello, Cleveland. You had Bill Belichick and Nick Saban on your staff, and you've won nothing.
Yeah. On that whole staff thing, it is always nice every time someone tweets it out, like a prominent person. Everyone's come around. They're like, the team went 3-13. Nobody was sticking around. It's like totally right.
And
like,
also,
like,
Matt LaFleur was 16 years old.
Yes.
KOC was 17.
Yeah.
They were smoking Newports together at halftime. Okay? So chill out.
Mike McDaniel's taking Jello shots the night before.
Right. Just chill out. Right. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. He was vaping before that was cool.
That's right. Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, he was 9 on that staff. Right. Anyway, all right, which one do you want to start with? Belichick or Saban? I don't even know which way to go here because they're both it's so nuts that in a 24-hour period, both of them
I
walked.
say let's start with Saban because it is open and close. He's retiring.
He's
not
retiring.
gonna be a coach anywhere. At least I don't think so.
I don't think so. I actually believe that this is. Why would he leave there?
Right, correct. Nobody leaves nobody leaves that type of situation to go somewhere else.
Not for a college job.
Right, exactly.
Not for a college job. So, all right, let's start with one. Is it a surprise? Not really.
Right.
I mean, I think some of this is we're in a new world in college football, one of which nobody's comfortable with because there are no rules.
Yep.
Not that there ever really were, but there were the way to cheat. Okay.
Correct.
Like that. And it was universally accepted that this is how you go about it, if cheating's even the right word for it anymore.
Yeah.
Now you're in the Wild West where you could recruit guys and you have to consistently continue to recruit guys because they can leave at any given moment. And no matter what you promise them, if you don't follow through, they might leave anyway, Alabama included.
Yep.
Everybody's got NIL money. So even if they perform well, someone else can come along and say, we'll do this or we'll do that. Guys are jumping from Georgia to Alabama and Alabama to Georgia. There's like zero anybody wanting to say, well, I went here because it matters to me. Everybody's chasing the best opportunity with the most money. And I believe it'll figure itself out. I don't think it's going to be like this forever. I think they're going to figure out collectively what are the rules we're going to play by and all mainly play by those rules, but we're not there right now.
Yeah.
He's old and he's just looking at this and going, I'm already doing a million things. And the one part that I had down was I could get people to come here and stay here for however long they'd stay here until they were NFL eligible and we'd have a machine. And now even he is walking into the same problem that everybody has. Keeping any singular team together is impossible. And he probably just went, I'm too tired for this. It's just a different game. I don't want to deal with it. And by the time it all settles down, I'm going to be 80.
Right.
And I would have retired anyway. And I can go make a lot of money doing anything. So, and my legacy is secure here.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So I don't have anything to prove to anybody. So in the end, in thinking about it, I'm not surprised. And considering he's not an attention hound, I'm not surprised that he just walked, that he woke up and said, you know what, I'm out. Like that's just it. And I also think, like, watch, he'll be intimately involved with who his successor is.
Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at what happened with Frank Beamer. Beamer did not actually leave. He was the one that helped hand pick. God, who was it? Who was the first guy they hired? I don't even remember who it was. He was out after 2 or 3 years though. But it was
well,
same
is that
thing.
everybody mad because Bud Foster didn't get it or something? Because he'd been there forever,
right?
And,
but Bud also stuck around too. So
he did probably angrily, but
right.
Yeah.
I can't even remember who the coach was.
Even when Gibbs left, he's like Pettibone had a year.
Yes, right, exactly.
He had a year.
But what I'm getting at here is, yes, he'll of course be involved. I think the epitome of how, like, just looking at it through a lens of why Saban was frustrated was, you look at a couple years ago when they won the national title, and it was they had Tua, Hurts, and Mac Jones all on the same roster. Remember?
Right.
And
that will never, ever be the case anymore.
We fast forward to this year where they were playing 2 quarterbacks and neither one of them was working out. And he's probably going to himself, there's probably at some point when it was after a game, he's like, how the hell did this happen? Like, how are we Alabama and we don't have a quarterback? Like,
right.
He's probably going, this is only going to get harder for the next 5 years. I don't want to do it anymore.
Go look at the trend around the college football now. Bo Nix played at Auburn, then he just went to Oregon. Or Notre Dame 2 years in a row. Went and got the Wake Forest guy. Now they got Riley Leonard. They're like, you know what? We're Notre Dame. They're gaming it. I think they're smart. They're gaming it going, why recruit a quarterback?
Right.
We'll just go wait for one that's like already established, good, has played, and we'll just offer them more money to portal over here.
That's right.
And I think they're just going to keep doing that. Like, what's the point of recruiting anybody?
They're also going, we're Notre Dame. You don't want to be the starter here. They're one of the few. They're one of the few that can just go, don't you want to put on that gold helmet?
Don't you want to do it?
And be on NBC every week?
Right.
Like, they're one of the ones that can actually do that.
That's right.
Saban's going,
they can't even do that.
Right. Saban can't do that because it's also coming into terms now, too, of like, I think in college, it's almost weird if you're on the super team now. Like, because then everyone says, oh, well, you had 3 5-star wide receivers and a 5-star running back and a bunch of 5-star O-linemen. Like, I think what's happening now is some guys are shying away from that. I mean, of course, the money's right. Who cares? But I think
that's what it's all about.
It's not
now.
Holding the weight that it used to just win a national title anymore.
And the brand and the college and the helmet and all that, there's no loyalty anymore.
Right.
As exemplified by what Florida State's team did en masse when they got screwed by the NCAA or the BCS and they didn't get put in the playoff and they just went, well, you know what? If you put a pot of money in front of us, we'll play Georgia. But if you don't, we're all going in the portal at the same time.
Right.
The whole team, the whole start, all the starters were like, nah, forget it.
Right, we're good.
So there's no loyalty.
Yeah.
And like half of them could end up on Clemson or whatever, and it doesn't even matter to them anymore. So like playing there doesn't matter anymore. And I think he's lost some of that, and that's just the system.
Right.
Beware of what you wish for. You allowed for this to happen. You know, I think it's the right thing to do, you know, from a capitalistic point of view. Like it was the right thing to do, like that the players should get what they get. But it also has sent the whole sport into mayhem, and he's going, and some of the basketball coaches already started doing this. Right. Kay was like, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. Jay Wright was the first prominent one to go, you know what? I'm good because I have to recruit, and then I get a guy, and 1 year later, if he doesn't like his playing time because he's behind 3 other pros to be, he just walks.
Right.
And then I spent all that time getting this guy to come here to prime him to take the place of this guy, and he didn't like what he played as a freshman, so he's just out. Or, I don't know, St. John's got Patino, so they got money now, so they're going to go just poach him. Right. He's like, I can't do this. And I saw an interview with him recently where he was like, they were like, do you have the itch to go back in? He's only 60. And he's like, no.
Wow.
He said no. He's like, no. Here's one of the most prominent, successful coaches, and he did it at Villanova, which has a history, but that ain't Kansas, North Carolina, or Duke. It's Villanova. They're always good, but they're not great. He made them great again.
Right.
And he's going, no.
He's like, I'm good.
And I think that's part of the calculus for Saban. He just said, you know what? I don't like the system.
Right.
The system doesn't work for me like it used to. I can always put together a good team. It'll always matter to play for me, but I can't keep guys here. And the game is narrowed, and now even my own guys, I can't convince them that it's important to play your whole career here anymore because if they see more money or more opportunity anywhere else, they'll walk in a second.
That's right. Right. Exactly.
So that's that. Here's what I would say about him. I'll get into the successors in a moment, but here's what I would say about him. So we're in chapter 3 of Tepper. Okay. We've seen this.
Right.
What did Dan do the second the heat started to get on him about dysfunction, his own behavior, firing too many coaches, not sticking with anything? He went with a hiring of someone that no one could criticize.
Right.
0. I'm not saying Nick Saban's going to be the head coach there. I'm saying he may go to him and say, we have your guy, Bryce Young. We need stability here.
Yeah.
Would you run our football operation? And I wouldn't be surprised if they did that because no matter what you're saying about Tepper, if you're a Carolina fan who signed a petition to get him to sell the team, just like the Washington fans, when we brought Joe back, there was a parade in town. What are you going to say about it? He's a living legend. Well, what if Carolina did that and offered him the moon to come in and be special advisor, president of whatever, oversee a GM? Nick Saban's part of your organization. He had the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback that they need to fix in the short term or they won't be good. That, to me, if I'm Tepper, I'm going, everybody's yelling about I don't do the right things. If I hire this guy, who's going to criticize it? Nobody. You can't criticize
I think
that.
people would criticize it only because it is Tepper, and Saban's run in the NFL was not
But we
good.
are in, I've seen it with Snyder. We're in chapter 3 or 4.
Right.
And this is the point.
He's making it go fast. But
This is the point where you have to do something grandiose to tell everybody, I am willing to put legends in place in charge of things here. So that's why I think that would be someone I would watch to say, not to coach the team, but to say, do you want to be part of this?
Could also, I mean,
it's a heck of a press conference and a rollout if you get him there.
Now, see, it wouldn't shock me, though, if he goes full blown and goes Saban and then hires Belichick as the head coach. And then everyone's going,
what are you going to say about it?
Right.
What are you going to say about it?
You tell me that he's old, but I'm hiring the 2 most brilliant minds of the sport, maybe ever.
Yeah.
And
Belichick may go, I'll be the front office guy. You go coach.
Yeah.
Maybe they switch off.
Maybe they switch.
When they get bored.
Depends on the week.
Yeah. 1 week it's him. The next week it's him.
Oh, we're playing the Jets this week. I'm the head coach.
Yeah, I'll be the head coach this week. That's Saleh guy. So, all right. As for Alabama, what do they do next? I think, they're going to land, obviously, a prominent coach. The Dan Lanning guy is the guy everyone earmarked because he'd been in the SEC. He's had a lot of success at Oregon. And he did what is the modern, which I loved. He put out a video going, I ain't going anywhere.
They do the Wolf of Wall Street, INF and leaving. It's what they do now. Like
that was great. So he's off the board now.
Yep. I'm going to guess, too, that Nike money's nice. You probably got a nice pay raise.
Well, it's always good to be wanted because then all of a sudden the other people have to induce you to stay. And Oregon doesn't. They've gone through a lot of coaches since Chip Kelly, really.
Right, yeah.
And they got a good thing right now. So why would they mess with that,
well, they're one you and I both earmarked when the NIL stuff. I was like, watch out for them in 5 years. They'll figure it out because they're Nike.
They have so much money.
They have so much money and it's going to be, their prominent players are going to walk out of the draft with a Nike deal. You know what I mean? Like there's going to be some crazy things they start doing because they're Nike.
And they play well. So, why wouldn't they stick with him? So, he's off the board. I would think Dabo is running to this job.
Right.
Do they want him?
Right.
He's won a lot.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Does Saban want him to be a successor? I don't know. That probably will matter. I would think that Dabo wants out of the ACC after he saw what happened. It is my position, though, that if it was Clemson and not Florida State that was in that position, there is no chance on earth that they would have been dissed the way that Florida State was because it's Dabo, because of the history.
Yeah.
They would have found a way to put them in and screwed over probably Texas. I don't think it would have happened. But because it was Florida State, who has a legacy, but they're kind of new kids on the block. The coach isn't high profile. I think they felt like we can if we have to. I don't really take too much of an issue with them getting snubbed, but I do think if it was Dabo and not Florida State, I don't believe the BCS wouldn't have put them in the playoff just because of who he is and what they had done.
Right.
Does he want that job? I'm sure he does.
I'm sure.
How could he not want that job?
I'm sure that's an easy one to pitch to their fans, too. Like, don't you guys want the guy that we went up against 1,000,000 times in the national title game?
He's the only other guy that won multiple national championships in the era that we've had Nick Saban here.
Now, the only thing I'll push back on, though, is he's been anti-NIL, and it's kind of like, dude, you got to go with the program, and Alabama's going to pay for anybody you want, so...
Right,
you kind of have to get on board with that one. So that's the pushback there.
Here's the other long shot that I don't think will get this job, but I bet is calling is Urban Meyer. Why would he not be?
Sure.
He's a liar. Okay, he says he doesn't want to do this. He does want to do
more
that.
Time with his family.
Yeah, he wants to spend more time with his family. He won in the SEC. He knows the landscape for sure. This is different now, but still. Come on. That guy, the itch will never go away for that guy. And he could say all he wants. He doesn't want to coach, but this is a different job. If Notre Dame opens or Alabama opens, does he want it? I wouldn't be surprised if you hear that he pokes around at it.
He's going to poke around. Alabama will not hire him, though.
I don't think Saban would have him get hired.
Well, and also his last 2 stints, not only with the Jags, but also Ohio State, the details that came out about that are not going to fly with today's players. The being a POS, basically, to your players, where you have to, no joke, be recruiting them 24/7 now. His style just will not fly. So I'm going to guess he's going to kick around. They're not going to return the call. So either. Yeah.
I think Lane Kiffin would want that job.
100%.
I don't think now Lane Kiffin went through the Saban car wash after everything went kind of bust at USC, and then he kind of recreated his reputation. Then he went to that smaller school in Florida, and then he ended up at Ole Miss. And things are going well at Ole Miss, but Ole Miss is in Alabama. It's hard to keep up with them.
Sure.
So I'm 100% sure that he's trying to get that job.
I'm sure.
And I don't know whether he would, But again, like this might lean on, does Saban like him? Because he did work for him. So I don't know. Lane knows the SEC, and I don't know. He isn't someone I would expect to be there a long time. And I also feel like the expectations are so much higher at Alabama than they are at Ole Miss. Like they're pumped to win 9-10 games
Yes.
with the Rams.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
You go there and you win 9 games. Well, you're just not Saban.
Well, I was going to say, too, like, Ole Miss might just be a great fit for him, too. Like, I think he's got to kind of evaluate that. He could just be their guy, you know?
Yeah.
For like, that kind of reminds me of Virginia Tech with Beamer. Beamer, all he had to do was win 9-10 games, win the ACC, go to a bowl game. Everybody was happy.
Yeah.
Everyone knew they weren't going to be national title contenders. That's how he is at Ole Miss, and sometimes that's a consistent, steady job. So I think the other part here that brings it around for me, though, is the first guy they get might be dead in the water on arrival anyways because of the expectations, you know?
Yes, but you don't want it to fall off because building it back up's hard to do.
Of course.
So you're trying to find the guy who can maintain it. It's not going to be him. Like I like John Shire. He's not Coach K. And so the idea that Duke is just going to keep humming along the way they always have, I think is a little bit of a tough notion.
Yeah.
The other ones I would watch are Bill O'Brien, I'm sure wants that job.
Of course.
Same thing, went through the car wash, worked there. They know him. Will he get it? I don't know, and I doubt it, but I bet he wants that job, especially now that Belichick's gone. I would bet he wants that job. And the last one is, and this is the one I think they should go get, it would be just like mayhem in the SEC, but I would go get Kirby Smart.
Could do that, yeah.
Because if you do that, you screw over Georgia, who is the resident dominant team in there. I mean, I know Alabama just beat them, but they've lost once in 3 years. They've won national championships. I thought they got screwed and should have been in the playoff, and I don't know if Michigan would have beat them if they played them, not Washington. Who knows? So, and plus, it would damage Georgia so much.
Right.
And he was an Alabama assistant, too, before he went to Georgia. That's where I'd go. I'd go to him and say, you know what you're doing. You're handling this landscape. Come here.
Yeah.
Will he leave? Probably not. Will Georgia have to pay him $1 bazillion to make sure he doesn't? Probably.
Yeah, right.
But that one's been real quiet, which I think is funny. Sure. Dan Lanning quickly was like, I'm not going there, probably because Oregon gave him a lot of money.
Yeah.
Georgia's got to be shaking a little bit here.
A little bit,
because if I'm Alabama, I want to screw them over and try to hurt them because they're the resident team that keeps pumping out all the pros like Alabama used to.
They could also be writing that contract up right now as we speak. With a lot of incentives.
There's going to be a big smile on his face.
Correct.
They ought to get the giant check and hold it together when they do that.
Giant check.
But outside of that, I don't know. But I think it's going to be a very prominent person, obviously.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a quick break. Bram, watch the show, ESPN 630, Sports Capital. Last night, I went out with Callow and the voice of the Capitals, John Walton. We do an annual get pizza somewhere. We went with the very red hot Detroit style last night down in the Shaw area at Emmy Squared. It was terrific. Thank you for that. It was very good.
Yeah,
Callow bought dinner for us last night, which was a nice twist and surprise. Thank you for doing that.
I'd planned on that.
Nice.
I'd planned on it.
Apparently. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
And that song just got me thinking, because I went home early because I'm an old man now, that you guys were doing that in Will Ferrell, Chris Kattan style out at the bars after I left you all alone. Is that true?
No, not like that. No, we sat for a little bit longer, but
Yeah, John and I like to trade our stories of calling games for prominent teams in the area. It's fun. I love John.
I just like to sit and listen.
Yeah.
Because it's a melding of worlds for me.
Yeah, he's very good. He waits for my season to end, and then he picks a night where they don't play and they're in town.
Or
so
we do it in the summer. We did it in the summer last
year.
year.
So that was fun. I appreciate you guys doing that with me last night.
Of course.
That song is from 1994, which is Throwback Thursday. Because that is the year that Nick Saban and Bill Belichick were on the Browns staff together. And then in a 24-hour period, both of them are no longer the coaches at Alabama or New England, which is really amazing.
We're in weird times now, officially, for all of them to step down. And even then, how do you think Pete Carroll's feeling? He's like, guys, you couldn't give me a day, guys?
Yeah. Since we only have a couple minutes here, I'll talk about Belichick at the top of the hour.
Yep.
But there is one thing that did come out today from the NFL that's totally under the radar and really only affects me. The NFL did announce who the teams are that are slated to go overseas next year. There are 3 games in England: Chicago, Minnesota, Jacksonville. Jacksonville always goes. Right. Those are the 3 teams that go there. The Germany team will be Carolina. All of these teams, if the rules don't change, and I don't think they will, all of these teams are the home team.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Which means to be the road team to play them, you have to be on their schedule already as a road participant. And we're 0 for 4 on all of those, which means my dream of an international game for next year is now down to, are they sending us to Brazil?
Yeah, right.
Which I don't think will be the case, because I have a feeling, because I think that's going to be either week 1 or...
They're talking about it, yeah.
Because it's such a trip.
Yes.
To go down there, that they feel like that would be they do a Thursday opener, maybe they'll do a Wednesday opener or something like that.
They left open the possibility for that to be a Friday or Saturday too.
Yeah, so. I think they like the opener being a Super Bowl participant or someone like that playing on their home field, so they get to raise a banner or celebrate.
As it should be. I think you don't mess with that.
Now we could do Amazon Friday from the Amazon, which...
That's funny. I like that, actually.
There's
Amazon
another one
from the
you.
Amazon.
Amazon Friday from the Amazon, Sao Paulo with Sal Palantonio. So I guess we could get that. We have 9 home games this year because it alternates. So we would have to be designated as the home team for that one for it to happen. And so I'm disappointed.
No,
that's true. We could be either way.
Yeah,
right? It could be either way. Yeah. But we are now officially, for Germany and England, we're 0 for 4. We're not designated as a road team to any of those places, which means we're not going.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Last year I had New England was going, and I went, we got a 1 in 4 or 5 shot to be the team to play them, because they don't do division games typically here. So we were 1 of 6.
Yes.
And then some of the other ones already had international games, so I narrowed it down to, it's 1 of 4. It could be us, and we ended up playing at Foxborough and not in Germany, unfortunately. But this year, it's totally off the table, which sucks for me and me alone, because I want one of these trips overseas.
You can still go to South America, though.
That's possible.
I'm just saying, it's not Germany, because I know I feel like that's the hot one now. I think people are more pumped about the Germany game more than any.
We have 9 home games, so we could be designated as more likely the home team in that scenario. Possibly if they give us one of the home games to do it. And we do have a couple of games that I would go, do we really need to have the Cleveland game in Landover? We could do that in Sao Paulo, guys. That'd be fun. The Brazilians might like Flacco. They might. Are they following that story? Because they might like that.
They might know who Watson is, though.
They might know it. They might.
Just saying.
Yeah, they might know who that is, yes.
I'm looking this up because I just...
Or if it is going to be a road game, if you want to send the Bengals down there, I will not complain about going to do the Bengals game, not in Cincinnati, but in Brazil.
Not in this case, but maybe they pick like 2 jungle animals. They pick like the Bengals and not the Commanders, unfortunately.
Bengals Jaguars?
That'd be funny if they sent the Jags to South America, too.
Yeah, and South America.
But I think that could be a possibility there.
That it does... This does remove these teams from being that.
That's true.
So it does now lower the odds that potentially we could be part of the Sao Paulo game, but I'm running out of options here. I was dying to see 3 teams that we're going to being on this list, and I go, well, now I've got a 1 in whatever shot to get it, and we're not going to get it.
I wonder, I'm just thinking out loud here, because I had to look it up because I don't remember them playing. The Cowboys have only played 1 international game.
Washington, too. They went to London against the Bengals.
But I'm saying,
but that was 8 years ago, which is why I feel like our turn is coming here.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. But with Washington, it's a little bit different. The Cowboys are the Cowboys. They
Cowboys
are a
in
brand.
Brazil. That actually makes sense.
I would think Jerry might jump at that to be the first team to play there, and then it's
will he
Brazil's team?
Will he do a Monday sports radio hit in Brazil?
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. I don't got the time to jack with you.
You can hear, a party going on in the background.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know Portuguese.
Yeah.
So that'd be a great interview. I think you're right, actually. The Cowboys could be they could do prominent teams. They could do like Cowboys, Chiefs, Sao Paulo, something like that.
And I'm thinking Goodell is going to Jerry, hey, man, you haven't done a lot of these. You've done 1 against the Jags.
And they would say, like, it's week 1.
It's week 1, and you'd be the team. You'd be the premier team to go.
Amazon from the Amazon.
Yeah, that's right. And then
I can't wait to see Al on that broadcast.
What's Al wearing for that
Is he excited about it?
Do they get, like, the Carnival dancers in the booth?
His little slide-in wittyisms will definitely be Brazilian, too.
Yeah, of course. Of course it will. Yeah.
Does Kirk bring his dog to Brazil with him to run around pregame on the field? I don't know.
That's a good question, too.
I don't know. All right, we'll talk about Belichick next. Bram, what's the show? ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. This is Green Day from 1994, which we chose for Throwback Thursday because that is the last year that Nick Saban and Bill Belichick coached on the exact same sideline. They were part of the Cleveland Browns staff that Belichick was the head coach of. It's 30 years ago now, pre-Belichick becoming arguably the greatest coach in NFL history. And today he ended a 24-year run with the New England Patriots that included 9 appearances in the Super Bowl and 6 championships, many of which people want to credit Tom Brady for the majority of, but still, he had to have been a part of it.
Team sport, guys.
Yeah, team sport. He also is within a couple of years away, or one crazy year away from catching Don Shula as the all-time winningest coach in NFL history. And he made it clear today in a very short, emotional press conference with Robert Kraft, which I thought was classy that they did it together.
I agree. I was really happy they buried it for 10 minutes to do that. Yeah.
They did not take questions.
Yeah. Kraft took questions at 2 o'clock, though.
From the media or from ESPN?
No.
I saw he did an appearance on ESPN.
No, he did a full-blown press conference.
He did.
So they
Belichick did not.
Correct. So they did it separately.
Okay. Yeah. So I haven't read what he said yet about the whole thing.
The one big takeaway that I heard, because Carlin and Joe were playing it live on their show, the one big question was, did you consider Belichick in a different role? Mm-hmm. And Kraft basically said, I've run a lot of businesses and bought a lot of businesses, and that just isn't something I was really interested in doing, like putting him into a different role and still being in the organization.
What would the different role be if he wasn't going to be the head coach?
Right. That's what. Yeah. No one. Right. I don't know.
I guess the point is maybe, do you want to just be like part of the advisory committee of this team in perpetuity?
Right. Or maybe that was even a backwards way to ask, like, did you consider him not having control of personnel, or did you want to change his role?
Well,
like,
I thought
maybe that was what it was too.
I thought Belichick was going to stay after he had that press conference earlier in the week where he said, I'm willing to relinquish control of the personnel, which I thought was okay, I'm willing to meet you halfway, but I guess the reporting has all been true from the get-go, other than the Washington connection. I guess it's all been true all along, because when we were up there in the middle of the season, I couldn't believe how many of their people that work for their organization were talking about it like it's a done deal if he doesn't turn this around, that he's not going to be back here. And I was surprised by that. So it was kind of like an open secret that this was it. This is how it was going to go down.
It also, look, it could have been Bill posturing too, knowing that if it was going to be the end of his tenure, that he got the word out there of, don't stop your GM searches. If you still want to hire me, you can move forward with that. Like, look at Washington. Washington's still going to hire their personnel people. So maybe that was him kind of green lighting, hey, if you hire a GM, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm out. Yeah. Maybe that could be the situation too, where he didn't want to, eliminate himself from any jobs that were coming up.
So the part that he gets linked to immediately, because he made it clear he wants to coach again. Yeah. And even Kraft acknowledged it's going to be weird seeing him on the sideline. Right. So he's going to coach somewhere, which led to the obvious question of, well, why didn't you trade him? He's Bill Belichick.
Sure.
And he described it the same way that actually the Titans owner described it, that we want to get ahead of our search. And this is different, because I think the Titans are casting the net to figure out who they want to get. It feels like the Patriots have an in-house candidate. So if they do, and they were intending on hiring Mayo the whole time, why didn't they hold out?
I think something's happening here with the way the Titans went and now the Patriots have gone. I think both teams must have had to have some kind of preliminary talks with other teams about this. And I'm going to guess the other teams with openings are probably going, dude, we're waiting for Ben Johnson, or we're waiting for the dude from Baltimore.
We're not trading for him.
Right. Or if we're going to trade for him, we're not trading for him until the second or third week of February, until we know we can't get there. So maybe it truly is one of those things where people
that also goes back to what I've said all along. I don't think there's a brisk market for him. Yeah. If there was,
right.
Then I think they'd be fielding these offers for him. But there clearly isn't. And which goes back to, and this is, I'll reiterate, I've said this from the get-go, I was wrong about Belichick leaving. But I'm not wrong about he's not coming here.
Yeah,
That's not happening, and it never really was. And I bet there's other teams like Washington's mindset that this isn't the right person at the right time for them.
I think what's happening here, too, is it's not like having a rental player at a deadline, right? Like, you're going to give up more than it's probably worth, and then go look at what happened with Peyton, with the Saints and the Broncos. His contract was just there. They were in no rush to get it done. So they're kind of going, offer us what you think because we're in no rush to do this. And if we come to a deal, great, we'll send him to you. And they did trade for him. But there was no sense of urgency is what got that trade done because they're going, we're fine either way. Right? Like,
yeah, the Saints were interesting. They were just like, you want to quit?
Right.
We own your rights.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Right. And then
we don't need to fire you.
Correct. Exactly.
Just quit.
And so
we don't have to pay you if you quit.
And they're going,
go ahead.
They're going no skin off our back if you want to be traded or not.
Right.
And whereas with these two teams, they want to get their guy, so you can't exactly do that until the opening is there.
Yeah, I guess. But the weird part is if the in-house candidate is earmarked to do it, then the Patriots would be in no rush. They could just tell Mayo, sit tight. It'll happen.
Sure.
Just sit tight. Unless they're scared Mayo would run waiting. But I don't know.
Right.
But this also does read then maybe Vrabel's really in play for them and that they are interested in bringing him back because he was a prominent player there and got fired partially apparently because he said nice things about them, which is stupid.
Right.
But like how thin-skinned do you have to be to hear him say, I was part of a dynasty and I appreciate that?
Right.
Like, what? And that's not true?
They're proving to be one of the wonky franchises again.
Yeah, I think they made a mistake with Vrabel, and I don't know. It sounds like he wanted to go. So
that was another part of it too. Was that I guess apparently their owner, she said, we want you to be the coach for a long time, and then Vrabel, I guess, was kind of just standoffish at that statement. So
he was trying to get her to fire him.
Well, she
did.
She was pretty much saying this should be mutual. I shouldn't be the one, not like any relationship.
Don't you want to be here?
You're right.
And
exactly.
be the head coach of an NFL football team that you've won a lot with and we like you.
Right.
And he's like, I don't know, guys.
But at the same time, he's going, I don't know, guys, because he's looking at his roster and it hasn't gotten better over the last 2 years. So it's not like it's a bad reaction there.
So the immediate reaction was the Falcons have been interested in him for a long time. And maybe, Arthur Blank has openly said he's getting older. He wants to win. Mm-hmm. They haven't hired a prominent coach like this in a long time, really since Dan Reeves. Are they ready-made to win? I don't think they have a quarterback right now either, but maybe that changes somehow.
Yeah.
Are they, better served if he's the coach? Yeah. Yeah, sure. I mean, over Art, for sure. Yeah. It does give them gravitas. So I believe that they would be interested in him. And now that they don't have to pay a price to get him, then he's open to talk. And then what I felt all along from the get-go was if this ended up being true, that actually you're not going to know who it is and you may end up being surprised at who it actually is in the end. And that's what Schefter put out today, that there is a quote-unquote surprise team that's been waiting for this to happen. So, all right, Seattle opens up their job.
Yep.
And Pete Carroll is not disliked.
Yep.
Right?
Correct.
But they do.
Right.
Why? Because they're probably getting Dan Quinn.
Right.
That's what we think, right?
That's what Jerry said, yeah.
Jerry loves Dan Quinn. Jerry isn't blocking it yet. Mm-hmm. He's not in love with McCarthy. He says he wants to see it play out with him. Are they the surprise team? Does Jerry, who also is older and is dying to win again, say, I'm going to bring in the greatest coach, and oh, by the way, you know how good a defensive coach he is. Look at our roster.
True. Yeah. No, that's true.
Look at our roster.
Yeah.
And we can keep Dak if you want him. And if you don't, we can talk about that. But, we got a good quarterback here. You can win here.
Yeah.
I'm looking to get over the top.
Right.
And his position has been for a few years now. We've been in position to do this. We just haven't.
Yeah.
So maybe he feels like bring in Belichick for a 2 to 5 year run, which is probably the extent of his personal ownership before he cedes it over to his children and wants to go out a winner. And maybe he's looking at it. So maybe they're the surprise team if they go out, that he goes and this is Belichick coaching the prominent franchise of the NFL. Would that be a stunner? A
lot of cut-off Cowboys hoodies.
That feels possible to me. That Belichick comes in as the go ahead, get us over the top. He's done it before. He hired Parcells. So it's not like he hasn't done this before where he hasn't gone after a legend. So it's possible.
You and I have had this conversation too. The Cowboys personnel is always great. They always make really good picks, and they always even their mid-round picks pan out with
their defense is silly.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not like they're doing anything wrong now.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna lose Quinn, it makes sense to bring him in. Right. He knows what he's doing, and you have Hall of Fame level talent playing on that side of the ball for them at a young age.
Yeah.
Micah Parsons is his new Lawrence Taylor.
Right. I will say this. Right division, wrong team.
So, we all know that he loves the Giants. And he's got this love affair with he wants to be there.
Yeah.
And if you saw the 30 for 30 or whatever, the E6, whatever they did,
about him,
gushing about his time on Parcells' staff back in the 80s when they won, and he was the defensive coordinator there, and how much he just loves it there, and he loves the Mara family. Now, that was also a love for the patriarch, Wellington, who's passed away.
Yeah.
These are the kids. Everybody says it's been very dysfunctional, and go look how they've operated over the last 10 years. One doesn't even live in New Jersey. One is like a Hollywood mogul, and the other one's there day to day, and they fire coaches like they're nothing.
That's right.
And they just got into, they're revamping the staff again. I think that they've held on to Daboll probably partially because they're worried. Does Belichick love Daniel Jones and thinks he can win with him? I don't know. I don't think their roster is ready-made to win, but maybe they appeal to him, and maybe that's the surprise.
Yeah.
So I think either one of them could be the surprise, and I'm trying to think, who are we not thinking about here?
I'm going to say it again.
Yeah.
Right division, wrong team.
Eagles?
I have a suspicion it's the Eagles. They're wonky. They have a really good roster. Roseman's
suddenly wonky, though. It's really weird.
Well,
their story is really weird.
Guess what settles that fast? That guy coming in.
Get us back over the top.
Roseman goes, dude, let me handle the personnel. Look what I've done. Look at the guys I trade. I draft well. Hurts has the right attitude to be under Belichick, too. That guy works hard, says all the right things. He'll probably come in calm. He either calms A.J. Brown down, or they trade A.J. Brown. I'm just saying, man.
It's crazy. We're the only one in the NFC East that doesn't want Bill Belichick.
Yes.
That's a little crazy to say.
Well, but look at Belichick and what you have to put him on a team that's ready to win. You need to put him over the top, because I don't think he's long for wherever he goes next. He's going to have a 3 to 5 year run.
Jerry hired Mike McCarthy because Mike McCarthy had won.
Right.
That's why he hired him.
Right.
Not because he had this stellar reputation.
Of course, no.
He hired him because he'd won.
Yeah.
And Jerry's getting older, and Jerry's, I think if they win a Super Bowl, I don't know how you don't bring back Mike McCarthy. Right. Of course you do. Mm-hmm. But if they don't, there's a big part of it, because they've been so weird about it, about it. And McCarthy did what I thought was the right thing, which was get Kellen Moore out of here. I'm going to turn the offense around. It's going to make me more valuable. I'm putting my hands on the wheel more than it's been to prove my worth to you, because you clearly want to replace me with this other guy. You're looking for a reason to get rid of me. And I think he has vindicated himself in a lot of ways, at least on that perspective. But if they don't get over the hump, which is what Jerry wants, and Jerry's older and keeps talking about how I want to win now, because it's been since the early 90s since they won. And could Belichick go out and set the record as the Dallas Cowboys head coach? That feels like something that would be attractive to him. Like, go to Atlanta, sure. But to be the head coach of the most prominent franchise in the league, that seems like that could be the surprise team. But it will come down to how does Dallas perform. And if they somehow lose this weekend, watch out.
Right.
I don't think they will, but if they do,
well,
watch out.
I was going to say, Cowboys, Eagles meet each other in the playoffs. Loser gets Belichick.
I don't think the Eagles are winning this weekend. I think they're done. Jalen Hurts hasn't thrown a pass this week. He has a hurt finger. Yeah. And A.J. Brown isn't practicing this week.
Right. I'm telling you.
They're such an abject mess. I can't wait till Kelsey goes on that podcast and really says what happened.
Right. Well, after he retires.
Really says. Because that story is going to be amazing. Right. I've never seen a team that's this good, that had it rolling the way they had it rolling, fall apart like this.
There's something to be said, too, with Belichick and the Giants and the Eagles. If you went to one of those teams, it would be one of the two teams that beat him in the Super Bowl. Those were the three teams.
Those are the teams
that beat him. And I think there is something to be said about that.
He has a love affair and an affection for the Giants franchise. Mm-hmm. The idea of probably being the Cowboys coach probably feels, I don't know. There's something about gravitas with that.
There is.
You have a really good team.
There is, but you know what?
Do.
I think you have to factor in here. When you do that for the Cowboys, you become a part of the circus. And I don't think there's the thing Bill hates.
He doesn't
more.
like that.
Bill hates being a part of that. Whereas imagine if Bill went to Philly, he would embrace that fan base.
He had Tom Brady as his quarterback, so the attention was all over them for years. It's not like he's not accustomed to it.
It was different, though. You know how it is. It's way different. Jerry's going to go on the radio and say, well, I got the greatest head coach in the world, so he better win. You know, like.
If Belichick's the coach, will Stephen A. Smith make fun of them every week? That's gonna be a tough one for
Stephen
him.
A. will actually come out in a hoodie, I think, at a first take.
I think he's gonna change his tune.
Hoodie
real fast.
and a cowboy hat.
Because they're an easy mark to make fun of when they fall short. Mm-hmm. But if Belichick's the coach, would he want to go down that road of making fun of Belichick? I don't think he would, actually.
I think he might.
As for the Patriots, it screams either Vrabel or Mayo.
Yeah, right. Literally two former linebackers.
And this also feels like, I don't think you do this unless you know what the secession plan is.
Right.
Like, Kraft is too smart for this. Like, the Titans move feels very, what are you going to do next? And I don't think they know what the plan is.
Right, exactly.
The Patriots one, it waited a few days probably because they probably wanted to see what was out there first. And the Vrabel firing kind of reads like all of a sudden he's in line to potentially be the coach. So I think it's one of those two. I'd be surprised if it's anybody else.
It's like we talked about yesterday where I said, I think some teams are making this call because they like 2 to 3 to 4 candidates. So they're going, this is the time to do it because we could envision our franchise being led by a bunch of these guys.
I just, in the same way I would talk about Alabama, I don't envy the person who follows this guy.
Yes, right.
Because as much as they're all sitting there like pretending, oh, things are so bad now and like we had to do this, you are following a legendary coach.
Right.
So the bar is high. The expectation is, oh, well, we had to do this because the time was now, but we'll just be back and be great again. Well, if you're not, then people start getting on you about it very quickly. So Vrabel feels like the right one just because he's won a lot. He knows the organization, and he seems to have wanted to get out of there and made so much noise that it made it go that direction. And I don't think he's wrong because I think they mismanaged their roster and he didn't see the right path to winning again. And he wasn't having a voice with personnel. So it clearly bothered him and he wanted to get out of there before it goes bust for too many years.
Right.
So I don't blame him. Does he look at the Patriots and think I can turn them around when Belichick couldn't? That's an interesting viewpoint to have.
Yeah.
You also don't know who the personnel chief's going to be because that's not going to be Vrabel. That's going to be somebody else.
Yep, correct.
So this is the one thing about the Adam Peters thing. I don't know if the Patriots are interested in him, but that is not unlike Washington. They don't have a head of football operations. And that's why I think Washington would be best served to get their guy locked up as fast as possible.
Yep.
Because that, I think, is the danger. Do they want the coach Washington wants? I don't think so, but you never know. I don't think so. But would they want the personnel guy that Washington wants? Peters has a background at New England, too. So I have a feeling this is going to happen pretty fast. And maybe why the secondary choice Ian Cunningham is on that list is because they're a little concerned that New England may try to swoop in and woo him to go to New England. So I think that's where the competition may be. And New England did this today because they had to, but I think they know who their coach is going to be.
Right.
I think they know that.
Yeah, like I said, I think this is the same thing. They have 2 to 3 guys that they're happy with. So like if it's
I think
Vrabel,
if they end
Mayo,
up giving it
and
to
someone
Mayo,
else,
I think they'd be all right. I think if they get Vrabel, it's a home run. And then I think outside of that, are they in line to interview all these coordinators? I don't think so. Jim Harbaugh's not going there. They would have kept Belichick if they were going to do that. So I think that they know what they're doing.
Right.
And so it screams Vrabel. That's what it screams. But maybe Mayo gets it. And my concern here is if we think Adam Peters is the right guy to run our front office, I think Josh Harris is on the clock to get this deal done immediately because they're the imminent threat if they're interested in him.
Right.
So that's how I see that.